So there's one topic, one conversation that causes most coaches to fail. And it's a counter-intellectual one, meaning the thing that makes the most sense to us is the absolute wrong thing to do for most of us. And that's the reason that most people who have good content and have the determination actually never succeed in building a coaching business. And that topic is, do I need a niche? 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 Do I need one of those? So we're going to dissect this conversation from a bunch of different angles and focused on two main areas: the mechanics of identifying a niche and what that means in your messaging and your marketing, and the mindset to keep you inspired. Now, if you take everything to heart that we talk about in this video and you implement it, then you'll be setting yourself up to win when almost everybody is setting themselves up to fail. Do you really need a niche? Yeah. How do I stop recording? We're good. All right. So let's, I mean, that is the answer that we're going to end up coming to, but we're going to do our best to explain to you why. And this is coming from 15 plus years of experience for me. It's not theoretical. It's not philosophical. It's based on what I've seen and what I've done over 15 plus years. And part of that has been wild success, and part of that has been wild failure. And having a niche is actually one of the variables that is mixed up in there. So we're going to tell you that whole story. If you're new to this channel, we talk a lot about the inner game of coaching, as well as the techniques and tools that'll make you a better coach and give you the strategies to build a bigger business. So if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe and watch a ton of our mindset videos. This one is the biggest reason that most coaches fail, in my experience, is actually this topic, for a couple reasons. And one of them is mechanical and one of them is mindset. So the mechanical piece, what I mean by that is, if you don't have a niche, marketing is going to be tough. And before we go on, you asked me a question, Michelle, right before we recorded, about how do I even define niche? And I didn't have a clean definition of it, but you found it. So you want to share with everybody what the definition is that you found?
Absolutely. So a niche is
it would have been great for you to just say no.
Okay. No. Yeah, I think it's important, man, because I really didn't know, like, really what it actually meant. So a niche, right, according to what I looked up and Googled, is a specialized segment of the market for a particular kind of product or service.
So the definition has a business connotation to it for sure. Yeah. There are applications of it that have, like, you know, you found your niche in life. But for the purposes of this, we're going to obviously keep it on the business conversation. And in our language, we really talk about this topic as you finding your seeker. And what that means is, instead of identifying a target of what you want to teach or who you want to teach to and going after and chasing that target, it's better to figure out who's already seeking the information that you have inside your head. And if you just identify who's already seeking the information you have, and then you get in front of those people, it's a completely different energy for most people who are teachers and not salespeople, right? I don't know a whole lot of coaches that like sales. I don't know a whole lot of people that really like the identity of being a salesperson. I know a lot of people, you being one of them, that have become really good at sales to the point where you can actually enjoy it. But I think you enjoy the outcome of it, especially in the coaching world, because you enjoy the advocacy of what happens when people say yes to a coaching program and yes to changing their life. Most people who want to be coaches don't enter this industry wanting to sell things. Right. So there's already a natural resistance to sales. And because of that, we just want to teach. We just want to help people. And I think that causes us to be a little more passive when it comes to the business side. And that's another piece, is that a lot of us don't have business training. We just have some kind of personal experience of helping people, and we just want to do that. And if there's a way to get paid doing that and build a business doing that, then that's great. But a lot of business training inside the coaching industry is, what's the best way to say it? It's like filtered through just the coaching industry. Whereas there's a universe of business information that can be applied to the coaching industry, where coaching is the product that fits into business concepts. But the way most coaches learn business is just inside the coaching industry. And I'm not going to say that all the business teachings are fake or anything like that. They're a lot of them are legit, but it doesn't really take into account real, true business fundamental concepts that really have nothing to do with the product. Yeah. And we as coaches, or people who want to be coaches, we don't come in with a business mindset. So this idea of finding your niche doesn't have any resistance, I don't think, in the business world. Like if you take coaching out of it, there's no resistance. You have to. It's, I don't know that I've ever really talked about that particular piece.
Yeah, I don't think so.
In the business world, nobody resists this because it's part of traditional fundamental business. If you have a product to sell, you need to know who you're selling that product to, so that you can find that person. So in the business world, and when I say the business world in this context, I'm talking about just the universe of business, regardless of the product, not just coaching product. In the business world, so much energy goes into who is your client and then where are they? Because if you're selling to kids, you're going to, or you want kids, they're probably not going to be cutting the checks. But if you want kids to tell mommy and daddy, hey, I want those shoes or I want that toy, you're going to advertise in a different place, on a different channel, in a different way. You're going to put your commercials together completely different than if you're selling mops, or if you're selling, any other product to a completely different person. You have to understand where those people are. So there are certain kinds of products that you'll never see in the infomercial world, because the kinds of people for those products aren't staying up at night watching infomercials. That's not their buyer's profile. So essentially that's what a seeker is. And that's what your niche is. Although there is another kind of niche and I'll talk about that here in a moment. But the foundational business idea of you have to know your buyer has no resistance unless somebody meets it with a mind that is not trained in business. And I wasn't trained in business. I know you weren't trained in business.
Nope.
So I really only learned this concept through trial and error. And you as well. We just picked up evidence. And one of the biggest pieces of evidence for me, many of you know my story. I'll just tell the 90-second version here for the context of this conversation. When I started, I just wanted to teach anything to anybody who would listen. And I opened up the phone book years ago when there was a phone book. I don't even know if there are phone books anymore, but the physical, thank you, copy of the phone book, and just started calling people. And I said, do you bring in speakers? At the time, I wasn't even focused on trying to get coaching clients or becoming a coach. I was just focused on trying to get speaking gigs. So I said, do you bring in speakers? And if they said yes, then I would try to book myself to come in and speak to these local organizations. I wasn't trying to charge a fee. I wasn't even really selling anything at the time. I just wanted exposure. And I would talk about anything that they would be interested in. I'd give them a menu of items about goal setting and mindset and focus on achievement and stuff like that. But truthfully, I would just talk to anybody about anything. And then I did that enough to where a specific person found me. My seeker found me. And it's somebody that I would have never, ever found. I would have never identified. I would have never said, I want to go after women selling Mary Kay. Never would I have said those words. But they found me because I was in motion. And then I focused on just women selling Mary Kay. And that's when my business exploded. So while I was doing a bunch of general stuff, I was taking action and I was learning how to build websites and a lot of things that I needed to learn. I was building a lot of muscles, but nothing really got any traction until I had an individual person. And then what I learned, this wasn't taught to me back then, or if it was, I don't remember it being specifically taught. But what I learned is if I know this one individual person, then I can just go all in with her. And so I started to pay attention to her journey in life, in the business. What are the questions that she's asking? And I started to create content specifically for this one individual person. And our business exploded and we made over $300,000 over the next about 11 months. Actually, it was just shy of $300,000. So over the first 18 months, we made over $300,000. The majority of that money was in the last 10 of those 18 months, almost all of it, actually. So that was my evidence that focusing on a single person can cause the business to explode. And then after that year, this is early 2008, I thought, I'm doing really well with this one person. What if I went to serve 10 people? What if I served the masses? And so I opened up my focus to anybody who would potentially be helped by the content that I was teaching to these specific people.
Right.
And after 18 months of a lot of success and learning a lot of the ins and outs of business and building a lot of these muscles, I just changed my focus on the person and opened up the specificity. So my content was more general and the business tanked like overnight. You know, the year before I had all these events booked with all kinds of people. And then this year with the generalized approach, like I booked 5 events in a row and only one of the events held, and there were 9 people at that event, and I lost just thousands of dollars. So I have the experience of not being successful with the general approach, being wildly successful with a seeker, even though I didn't have the understanding of that label at the time, removing that focus, and then being wildly unsuccessful to the point where about a year and a half after that, I filed bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So my opinions come from that evidence. It doesn't come from theory. It doesn't come from what makes sense. Because here's what makes sense. Whatever you teach can help a lot of people.
Yes.
What makes sense is we don't want to cut people out.
Yeah.
And if you've got a lot of people in front of you, potential people in front of you, you can help housewives and you can help athletes and you can help men and you can help couples and you can help all these people. And you have all these people in front of you. What doesn't feel good to the non-business mind, but it's the common sense mind. So I don't want to say that like I'm being demeaning, right? Because it didn't make sense to me either. What doesn't make sense is that if you take the majority of those people away, you'll be more successful.
Yeah.
And what we think about are the people that we're taking away.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem, because remember, we just want to help as many people as possible. So it doesn't make sense if I want to help as many people as possible and I got 100 of them in front of me that I would remove 98 of them.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. So this is, in my experience, the biggest area that most coaches, especially new coaches, people that haven't gained a lot of traction, struggle with.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been talking about with coaches for 10 years. And I don't know that I've figured out a way to make it make sense, because it really doesn't. Yeah. And I still don't like doing it. I still don't like focusing on specific people. I don't know how many times you've asked me, all right, for this product, for this particular thing, who's your secret? And I'm like, nah, everybody, stop it. You know, and then I have to remember, like, we actually teach this at a deep, deep, deep level. So my point is, I don't like it either. And I teach it. I've just learned the value of it.
Yeah.
I still don't like it, but I've learned the value of it. So if somebody hasn't learned the value of it, then it's just whether they like it or not. Yeah. And if you don't like the idea, it makes sense for you to be generalized, and it makes sense to model the people that you see, then that's what we will normally and naturally do. Mm-hmm. And that will lead almost everybody directly into the coaching graveyard.
Yeah.
So conceptually, that's my experience and evidence. Is there anything you want to add to that before we dive into some of the specific components here?
Yeah, what I thought is it's not even just if you like it or not. It really is if you're just coachable, right? I don't think that you have to like it or not like it. It's just, can you have somebody that you just trust their experience and their wisdom, like in this particular area that is more than you, to just believe them and just try it on. Because I didn't love it, and I didn't know if it was going to work or not. I just trusted you. And it turns out you were right.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And that's the mindset piece. So earlier I said there's a mechanics piece and there's a mindset piece. We're going to get into more of the mechanics, but let's talk about the mindset since you brought it up. The mindset piece of this is that because we generally don't like it, and it requires effort and it requires us to kind of mess up. It requires us to do things that either don't feel good or don't make sense to us or won't succeed right away. I think that's like a test. How committed are you to building this business, and how committed are you to helping that one individual person? And if your commitment level only matches your convenience level, well, then you're not going to succeed in business, nor do I think you deserve to succeed in business, because those people in this world that need transformational help, they need people who are deeply committed to understanding them, to finding them, to doing what it takes to build the body so that when they meet you, you're ready to serve them. And if my level of commitment to you is only what's convenient, if I'm not willing to jump over hurdles or climb the hills that are between you and I, then I'm never going to find you. You're not going to jump over those hurdles and climb those hills backwards to find me.
Right.
And I actually believe in the world of coaching that is just being driven by so many people that are selling commodities that sound like one size fits all. This is easy, just plug and play. I believe we need, especially with what the world has been going through in terms of all the disruption, the pandemic and the divisiveness and all that. I believe the world needs people who are willing to stay in it until, not unless. And if you're not familiar with that, I don't know if that was an original by me or somebody else said it. Most people are committed unless. They're committed unless it takes a lot of time, or unless it takes a lot of money, or unless it's hard, or unless it's not comfortable. You got to be committed until. Commit until you succeed. Commit until you find that person. Commit until it works. And that commit until mentality will require you to do things that might not make a whole lot of sense. It will require you to take ignorant action. It will require you to not know about what's going to happen, but act anyway.
Yeah.
There are certain muscles that you need to be, that need to be built, that can only be built when you act and not know what the path is going to look like, or not know what the results are going to be. It's a required piece of the journey, especially for people that you want to help. So you were pretty demonstrative as I said that in your nodding. What do you want to add on top of that? Yeah.
Yeah, that was just powerful. Just really thinking about most of us are looking for even if it's unconsciously, looking for the off ramp, right? Like, I'm going to do this unless, like, we're not even committed. We're not all in energetically. We're 1 foot in the pool and 1 foot out. And then we're complaining that we're not getting the success of the people that are all the way in the pool.
Right. We're playing hokey pokey.
Yeah.
I'll put 1 toe in, I'll pull 1 toe out, I'll pull 1 toe in and expect to make $1 million.
Right. And we're also not stable, as you just demonstrated with your body, right? Like, we're wobbly because we're not even like grounded in like one solid place, like all in. I'm just going to be focused here and get whatever lessons are for me here. And then I also think that we forget that we can move. That's another conversation. We can maybe dive in here or in another video, but we forget that we can change our mind. We forget that just because we're all in the pool doesn't mean at any point in time we can't get up and go into another pool. And I think when we have that unless attitude, we're actually looking. Like, we've told our mind to look for the excuses to bail out.
That's a really good point.
Right? Like, that's what we're actually telling our brain, like, find the reasons for me to get out of here. When we say, like, I'm in, right, until this works, then we're looking for, how is this going to work? How can I make this work? Not how can I get out of here? And so just even with the language and what we're telling our brain, that's so important. And I think we don't even realize it, that we're 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
No, because it's just the way that we operate. We're not going to dive into the technical piece of this, but what you really just touched on is a meta program. And for those of you that haven't heard of that, that basically is just like, how is our brain oriented at a meta level, at a really high level? And most people's brains are oriented to not fail. Yeah. Most people's brains are oriented to look for those off ramps because they're not fully committed until. And that shift is so big. You know, that's probably why at a deep level, so many coaches fail, because they never make that shift. Yeah. It's like if you don't make that shift from the way you see the world and the way that you see entrepreneurship, then even if you agree with everything that we're saying here, but you don't make that shift in your mind, then you'll still be looking for the off ramps. You'll still be looking for the things that could go wrong. And as long as we're afraid of the things that could go wrong, we shouldn't be playing business, because business is full of taking risks in the domains of things that could go wrong, so that we can find that thing. And we'll be able to do it with the mindset that you mentioned, but we won't be able to do it if we're constantly looking for all the minefields or the what is it called? Just the mines. And then the whole world seems like a minefield because we're looking for the bombs. We're afraid of stepping on the tripwires. We're afraid of getting hurt by stuff that doesn't work out. And so that shift is a really critical piece. And that requires an understanding of just the way that the mind works. Now, if that's something that you're interested in, those of you that are watching or listening, we'll put a card up here or put a link in the description. We have a certification program for coaches to get a lot more certainty in the world of transformational coaching. And this is just one of the elements that we teach. You got to understand how the brain works if you're going to help humans make changes that require shifts in their meta programs, or require shifts in their value system or belief system or conflicts or trauma healing or whatever those underlying issues really are. If you want to help people make those shifts, you got to understand human behavior at a deep, deep, deep level. Because if you just tell people what to do and tell people what not to do, it's not going to work, because the shifts haven't been made. So check out that program. It's called Breakthrough Coaching Certification Program. And it's phenomenal, if I do say so myself, at teaching the depth of human behavior. So back to this idea of people seeing all of the potential risk. If we don't make that change, then we're just not ever going to build the muscle that is required for stability in business. And what so many coaches are looking for, or people that want to become coaches, is the guaranteed road to success. Yeah. And as long as we're looking for the guaranteed road to success, we will fall for it when it's presented to us. And that's what a lot of people are purchasing, because a lot of people are selling, because a lot of people are looking for it. Right. So if there's a demand, there will be a supply. And when the demand is not based in reality, then there's going to be a lot of disappointment. because when people buy what they think is the answer, or they follow that path that makes sense to them and it doesn't work, then people get disappointed and they lose a lot of hope. And that's what this particular concept fits into, the idea of what's real and what people wish was real.
Yeah.
And in business, so much of the work that we do is like, we'll never sell something that we don't believe is true to people, that we don't believe is real, but we'll just tell you, we'll help you get through it, right? We're not going to tell you that the path is smooth, but we're going to tell you how to get over the bumps, and we'll stick around with you while the road gets bumpy, right?
Absolutely.
And people who are selling a smooth path in entrepreneurship, beep. So, but I truly don't think the problem is the availability of the smooth path idea. The challenge is that people want the smooth path.
Yeah.
And in business, you've got to be committed to what's on the other side of the bumpy road, so much so that you're willing to go through the bumps. And when you're willing to go through the bumps, it'll be easier. I just got a visual. Have you ever been riding your bike and you're going off road, or you're riding on a sidewalk or something that's got cracks in it, and the bike is like, you can see that it's going to get bumpy, and your bike is about to get bumpy. If you hunker down, if you tighten up, if you put your butt on the seat and tighten your grip on the handlebars, and you just ride over those bumps, you're going to have a bruised backside.
Yeah.
And if you're a male with male parts, you might be in some serious trouble. But any of us that have ever ridden bikes over bumpy roads, what do?
Stand up.
We stand up. We can still continue going, but when we stand up, the bike and our knees and our joints absorb the bumps.
Right.
And we can actually give ourselves a pretty smooth experience with our torso and with our head, and, with our experience and even our butt. Like, it doesn't even get hit by the seat because we've stood up. So we're still navigating the same terrain, but the way that we're navigating it makes the experience completely different.
Yeah.
And I think what most people are doing is just being hunkered down on the bike, looking for the smooth path. And when they can't find a smooth path and everywhere seems bumpy, then they just don't pedal.
Right.
I just got sad. But there's hope here. There's hope. And specificity is usually what creates hope. But specificity is a thing that most people, I think, are afraid of.
Yeah.
I think we tend to be afraid of being looked at ourselves through a lens of specificity. We don't like people knowing our business. We don't like sharing our vulnerable truth. We don't like even looking ourselves at our own lives and looking at all the things that we've created. And do we like what we've created? Do we like our body? Do we like our bank account? Do we like our relationships? For most of us, that's uncomfortable. To me, it's still uncomfortable, even though I've been doing this for a long, long time, but it's still uncomfortable.
Yep.
And it's easier for us to just kind of slide back into the vagueness, right? Or into the shadows, especially if we're afraid of the spotlight. So being looked at personally with specificity, I think, causes resistance for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then when we add that to the mindset that you were talking about earlier, about all the things that could go wrong, like what just hit me is that's where our specifics get applied, is look at all the things that can go wrong. And then we dive into any one of those things or several of those things, and we use our powers of specificity to catastrophize the potential for going wrong.
Yeah.
Rather than staying in that, I'm going to go until mindset. And when that happens, then every one of those bumps in the bike riding analogy, each one of those bumps is dissolved to an extent in terms of its power to disrupt us, because we've changed the way that we are riding on the bike. And so now all these bumps aren't as powerful. And essentially what we've done is we've removed the specificity of damage of each one of the bumps. So using our specificity strategically can be really important. And if we're using it to focus on what can go wrong, that's probably going to create too much resistance for us to be motivated to keep going. Because when we get in our heads and start catastrophizing about what can go wrong, catastrophizing, it's scary in there. Right. What is it? What did you say?
Game over.
Game over. And it's just so much easier to stay where we are, convince ourselves this isn't for us, or whatever kind of sabotage that we have, or just go look for another piece of information because we think we need better information, right? We need better tires. We need a better bike. We need a better seat. We need better handlebars. Really, you might just need to stand up on the bike that you have and maybe let go of some of the other stuff that you've been carrying on that bike so you can navigate the terrain better. So specificity is the answer, but it has to be used properly. And from a mechanical standpoint, when it comes to marketing, if you know who you serve, then it'll be easier to find out where they are. So if you tell me that you help housewives and you help divorced fathers and you help college graduates and you help mothers of multiple children families, and you help world travelers, and my question is, where are they?
I have no idea. Everywhere.
Right. So if you have a thing that's going to change their lives and you're tasked with going and finding them, now to the logical mind that doesn't understand this business concept, what you said is actually exciting. They're everywhere. But there's no specificity in everywhere. No. And if you start speaking your message everywhere, to everyone, there's no specificity in how that lands either. I love thinking about a garden hose with is it called a nozzle?
It is.
The nozzle on the end of the hose, right? You get one of those nozzles and you can change the modes, and one of the modes is just like a straight shot, whatever that laser mode is, a stream, right? And then the other mode on the other end of the spectrum is the mist mode, and then sometimes there's several modes in between. But if you think about the specific stream and the mist coming out of the nozzle, that's a really powerful image to understand the power of the message. So the same amount of water concentrated in a stream can do a lot more than the amount of water not changing, but unconcentrated, fragmented in the mist. Now, it might make sense if we use the mister, it'll spray the water around a bigger area, but also people are not going to get all that wet. If people are thirsty and they just get a little bit of mist, they're not going to be able to quench their thirst. So there are a number of ways to think about this, and hopefully analogies that are landing for all you guys. But the bottom line is specificity wins when it comes to being able to focus and find people where they are. Now, I want to say this. There is a way to focus a niche on a topic and not a person. So a niche topic could be like losing weight for people over 40. There's not really a tight profile of who that person is. That person could be a male or female or a mom or dad or anybody. And the topic itself is nutrition. And we've got kind of a narrowing effect of people over 40 maybe, but the topic itself is more of the niche rather than the person as a profile.
Okay.
So that's possible. But what I've found is that when your seeker is a person, this is that mindset piece that I talked about earlier. From an internal inspiration standpoint, we are most likely more willing to get up when we fall down to help a person that we can clearly envision. But if we don't know who it is with specificity that we're trying to help, we're just helping all the butchers, the bakers, and the candlestick makers, and we don't have specificity in who that person is, then there's no real attachment to the humanity inside that person. And we're just trying to go after a bunch of people. And then we have to get motivated by the desire to succeed, the desire to make money, the desire to win, whatever that means. And for most of us that don't have the business mindset and we just want to help people, we don't have a big enough fuel sourced by our desire to win and succeed and make money that's bigger than those fears and bigger than the marketing challenges when there's no specificity on it. So when we are clear that our seeker is this particular person and this is what they're dealing with in their life, it connects to our emotions a little bit more, and it causes us to shift. I mean, how long ago was it when we were trying to figure something out, like what is a few months back, and we were trying to figure out an opt-in page or something, and weren't we like struggling with something for a day or 2 days? And it was so frustrating. And you made a comment that was incredibly profound for both of us. And it just kind of shifted us back into this place that we needed to be shifted. Because in that moment, I was frustrated. I know you were frustrated, and it would have been easy to quit.
Yes.
Especially if we didn't, have a business that is already foundational and creating our livelihoods. Right. If this was optional, it would have been a lot easier to quit. Yeah. And I imagine you remember what you said. So you want to share what you said?
Yeah, it was just that Shannon needs us to figure this out.
Yeah. So speak to that for a moment, if you will.
Yeah. Well, earlier you talked about what's on the other side of the bumps on the bike, right? On the road, not on the bike, the bumps on the road while we're on the bike. And to me, it's not what is on the other side, it's who. It's who's over there. And when we think about like our seeker, right, for the business, Shannon is her name. We do name them. It's a person. We know about her and know her details and know what she likes and what she's afraid of and what it is that she really wants and what she's tried that hasn't worked. And when we can visualize her, then it becomes so much easier to keep going, because there's a person that needs our help that's on the other side of this obstacle that we're struggling with right now. And when I link to this person needs my help, then I'm just like, okay, I'm in this, like I got to figure this out. Whereas if there's just a million people, Sean, or it's just a general concept, or it is the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, it's easier for me to not really, it's easier for me to pretend that I'm not important. It's easier for me to pretend that they'll get help somewhere else, because I mean, there's just so many people. So somebody else has got them. So it's easier for me to detach, right? Like you said, and just pretend that it's really not that big of a deal if I don't. But when I know that this one woman is waiting on us, and if we don't do this, if we don't figure this out, no one else is going to help her, that doesn't feel good to me. That doesn't feel good to me at all. So then I get emotion to do what's necessary to get her what she needs so that she can get the support that she's looking for.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And the specificity attached to a human being, a single person, will cause most of us to do more action to try to help that person. And so the more generalized we get and the less specific we get, the less attached we are to those individual people.
That's right.
And so, you mentioned that our seeker, we've named Shannon. We've highlighted exactly who she is and what she deals with. And when you have specificity like that, then the marketing actually becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
This is a deep concept and conversation, especially when we get into the mechanics of it. So we'll put a link up here and put a link in the description of our free training on really honing in and clarifying and identifying who your seeker is. And when you have the specificity of who your seeker is and what it is that they want, what are they looking for, what are they afraid of, then it's so much easier to create content. It's so much easier to create programs. It's so much easier to write emails. But when your generality is clouding and detaching you from the people on the other side, then it's just easier to say, that's okay. Like you said, somebody else will get them, right? Or there's really no face that I see. There's just a bunch of cloudy images over there. And the distinction that you made between what and who, I think, is critical. If your business is driven by what, then it's going to be really tough to not just find your inspiration in the service of what, but it's also probably going to cause you to think that the what is the most important about your business. Yeah. Like what it is that you teach or what is in the content of whatever it is you put out there. And the what is probably not going to inspire you to climb over the obstacles. And the what is not going to inspire them to pay attention to you, especially in today's world where we're just so assaulted on a daily basis by all of these marketing messages. Mm-hmm. We, by default, I believe, have created a pattern of not paying attention because we're just assaulted constantly. So the first thing that matters in our interactions is attention. If you don't get somebody's attention, nothing after that matters. So I see a lot of people putting focus on doing webinars or writing a book or putting sales pages out there and, you know, the mechanics of what needs to go into emails and sales copy, and all of those things are important.
Yep.
But if nobody comes through your door, does it really matter how your house is furnished? It doesn't matter because nobody came in the door. So we have to understand that the very first step is getting somebody's attention.
Yep.
And if your message is too general in a world where we are being hyper assaulted by marketing all the time, general information doesn't cause us to pay attention. It's specific information that causes us to pay attention from a specific person that we understand and we can resonate with, and we might even see ourselves inside of. We enjoy the personalities that deliver information to us.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were to go down the list of all the people that we pay attention to, the emails that we open, the videos that we watch when we get the notifications, I guarantee the majority of them is because we like the person.
Right.
Because the information can be found in different sources. I mean, none of us has information that is unique to us, but we all have a unique perspective to serve information in a different way than the way it's being served all over the place. So if I just got connected with a guy or started following a guy a couple of days ago, and I watched all of his stuff because I like him. I think he's a cool dude. I think he's real. I think he's transparent. And everything he teaches, there's 1,000 other YouTube channels that teach all of it.
Right.
But I want it from him. I want it from him. His name's Brian Miller. I'll go ahead and tell you his name. We might even link to him. Maybe I'll send this to him or something. Because he's real and he's distinct. Yeah. Not in the information that he shares, but just in who he is. And he lets me know who he is. He's vulnerable. He's real. I can tell you a little bit about his life because it's the who that pulls me into and then makes his what relevant to me.
Bingo.
All right. So after we finished the recording and we ended the session, I thought about one more point that I really want to make. Again, just based on evidence of what we've seen work. The point of getting clarity on who your seeker is to get in motion. Whatever produces more motion will create more results. And whatever results are created will give us feedback that we can then adjust. That essentially is the business journey that's really critical for us to understand. So whatever is going to help you get in motion is the critical variable here. And that's what specificity generally does. But here's the counter intellectual truth that I've learned, and everybody I've ever talked to about this would agree with. When you are focused on a specific person, you will actually attract a lot more people that don't even match that profile. That's what doesn't make sense to the intellectual mind. If you focus on an individual person, there's going to be an energy in your voice. There's going to be an energy in your messaging that is distinct and clear. And a lot of people will actually be attracted to the clarity in the message, even though they don't match the target that the clarity in the message is aimed at. So the counter-intellectual truth, which I hope is great news for you, is that when you focus on a single person, you will actually attract a lot more of those people. So earlier on, we talked about having this group of people, and we don't like to filter most of them out. By focusing on a single person in that group, you actually have a better chance to attract everybody in the group. That doesn't make any sense to our logical minds. It wouldn't have made any sense to me either. That's just what I've learned over 15 plus years and millions of dollars created in this particular coaching industry. So I just really wanted to add that piece here to the back of the video, because you've got to have hope that what we're saying is not just theoretical and it's not just philosophical. What we're saying is, oh, by focusing on this, we'll actually attract a lot more people. And if you believe that, if you trust us and put it in play, then I'm pretty positive you'll find out the same is true for you. Now, if you like this video and you want some more specifics about this conversation, check out that video that will not only help you identify what your niche is, but it'll change the way you look at llamas forever. If somebody's already searching for what you have, they're wanting you to give it to them.